This is Gerardo Del Real with Resource Stock Digest. Joining me today is the CEO of Uranium Royalty Corp, Mr. Scott Melbye. Scott, how are you today, sir? Good to have you on.
Gerardo, it's always good to be on with you, and exciting times in the politics nationally here in the U.S., but also in the uranium market. Just continues to be exciting news day after day.
Well, listen, let's get right into it. Obviously, we have an election, a fair and square election. We chatted a bit off air. There's a lot of momentum right now in the US for, hopefully expedited permitting, less red tape, a more business friendly approach, and cheaper capital. We'll see how many of those things actually play out, but there's definitely excitement and momentum there now that the election is behind us. I want to talk about Uranium Royalty acquiring the existing royalty that you just announced about a week or so ago. But before that, I got to get your macro take on how you see, now that the election's behind us, how you see and how you hope that the next administration partners with companies like Uranium Royalty, like the UECs of the world, like other companies that are North American based and have significant exposure to assets that can really help revive an industry that's long been dormant here in the U.S.
Yeah, no, it's listen, we the nuclear industry and uranium, we're in a fortunate position. No matter who won on Tuesday, nuclear is part of the energy policies of both parties. Democrats get there for a different reason than Republicans get there, but that's okay. We both realize that nuclear power is an important part of the mix. I think in a Trump administration, clearly the electricity sector will be driven. That energy dominance that Trump speaks about will be powered by natural gas and nuclear. And so in talking to a lot of the advisors and transition team people, that was the case in his last administration, certainly will continue going forward. So, we're just also facing the reality that our energy demands have suddenly increased exponentially, particularly electricity. Our society's become more electrified, more high-tech, electric vehicles, data centers, and now the AI demands on data centers, could consume 10 to 20% of our electricity in the coming years. So the Amazons, Googles, Microsofts coming into the industry, buying output from existing reactors or building small modular advanced reactors. It's a very exciting time. I know the FERC ruled on Amazon's acquisition of the Talon nuclear power plant output in Pennsylvania. Not surprisingly, but I think that's not a negative as much as it is. It recognizes the value of that nuclear power plant. I think FERC is reserving it for the broader public and the grid, rather than allowing a company to kind of siphon that off before it hits the grid. So the point is nuclear power is valued and it's going to need a lot of uranium. So uranium royalty, UEC, ideally positioned.
I couldn't agree more with those sentiments. I'm glad to hear your take on the ruling and the justification for it. It wasn't a dead on arrival type of situation. I think a lot of people, that maybe just scrolled through the headlines took it that way, right?
Yep. Yeah. No, the reality is that the tech industry is fully engaged. I'm attending a conference in California that's this week that's entirely focused on nuclear energy for the tech industry. So yeah, we're in a new phase, a historic phase for nuclear power. We need a lot of uranium though, and we went through a 12-year bear market where we missed investment cycles in exploration and mine development. So whether it's UEC building mines in Texas, Wyoming, and Saskatchewan, or it's Uranium Royalty that's investing in global mines across, Africa, Australia, Canada, U.S., anywhere where there's uranium, we want to be invested. And I think, our latest acquisition of the Millennium and Cree extension uranium projects, a 10% royalty on a 20% interest on those projects, we're really excited for it. It was a $6 million investment, Canadian, to get those royalty interests. Why is Millennium important? It's one of Cameco's that they've identified that as one of their key pipeline projects. Obviously, they're focused on MacArthur and Cigar, and increasing to get full increased production at those two mines, of which Uranium Royalty owns royalties on both those projects. And now we have a royalty on one of their biggest pipeline projects. It's 75 million pounds at an average grade of 2.39% indicated resource, and another inferred of 29 million pounds at 3% grade. So it's one of the largest undeveloped projects globally. Cameco has not announced or identified the development timeline and startup timeline on that. It is a pipeline project for them, but I think as they fully, Cameco, as you saw on their earnings call today, are not having any problem selling uranium under long-term contracts to global utilities. So as they fill up the capacity of Cigar and MacArthur, they're going to start to turn to their pipeline, and we hope that Millennium is high on their list of development, because we just love having this royalty exposure to the project. It's a net profit interest. It's, as I said, 10% on 20% interest in the project, operated by Cameco, and in joint venture with JCU. So great project. Happy to have it in portfolio. We want to just continue these kind of acquisitions, and we're scouring the planet for existing royalties like this, and very actively providing project financing proposals for new mine development that will result in royalties or streams ending up in investors' portfolio.
Excellent. What comes next for the rest of the year, and what comes next in 2025? I know, obviously, you've been very, very busy lobbying, if we want to call it that, but definitely advocating for nuclear, advocating for uranium royalty, advocating for UEC. What comes next?
Yeah, so for uranium royalty, we see, in terms of new mine development that's needed, the low-hanging fruit are existing mines that are already permitted and in many cases already have been built with infrastructure. So it's not surprising Boss's Honeymoon, Langer Heinrich's, the Paladin Langer Heinrich mine, of which we have a royalty on, or U.S. mines like UEC's. Those are the fastest movers and are moving forward. But we need 5 or 6 more new mines beyond that, to be producing by 2030. Beyond 2030, we need a whole host of new mine operations. So we really want to be a capital provider at Uranium Royalty Corp to finance that next generation of mines. So I will be traveling, as I said, to Africa, Australia, talking to all the North American producers and seeing if we can provide that capital. And investors in UROY will end up in having a growing portfolio of diversified uranium interests through the royalties and streams.
Exciting times, transformative times, both in the country, politically, we'll see economically, definitely in the critical metal space, and most definitely in the uranium space. Looking forward, Scott, to chatting again soon. Safe travels, and thank you as always for your time.
Thank you very much. Take care.
All right, you as well. Hey everybody, Gerardo Del Real here. If you're enjoying the content that you just saw, you can let us know in 3 simple steps. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and please share across your network and on social media. Take care, everybody.